What's good, yo? Today, I'm going to be showing y'all how to improve your melodies and how to make good melodies every time you open up FL Studio. So the first thing I'm going to start with are the chords. I'm going to be showing y'all how to make good chords and how to improve your chords as well. Alright, so I just got a basic piano preset and I'm in G sharp minor here. And the way I usually do my chords is I'll usually start with basic chords, like a basic triad, like that. All right, so I just laid down some basic triads. Honestly, if you just left them like this, it could work. It doesn't sound bad, but you could definitely make these sound better. So one of the ways I like to make my chords sound better is adding notes, or moving around notes. So for example, I could add a note here. Yeah, so actually that sounds better to me. And then maybe we could even add one right here. But I think I might actually just take this one out and just have it like this. So this note kind of added some tension to it and definitely made it sound more interesting. So you could also, like move notes like that, for example. See how that sounds? I kind of like how it sounds, but I think it needs maybe more notes to complete it. So might try to add maybe this one. So yeah, I actually really like how that sounds. I just added this top note, moved this from A sharp just one semitone up. And also if you notice, that kind of makes the B repeating and that usually sounds good. And I also added this passing note here. It goes well into the D sharp here. And I'm also gonna maybe try to add maybe this note to this chord. See how that sounds. Yeah, so I added another C sharp. This is also repeating, as you can see. So another thing I like to do with my chords is I'll either take the bottom note here, the bottom notes, and copy them down an octave, or I'll just move them all down an octave. So I think for this, I'm just gonna move it down an octave. That'll make it sound a bit more full. Another thing that you should definitely be doing, especially when you're using real instruments, is all R. I'm sure everybody knows about this. Randomize the velocities, and of course strum it. I also, with pianos, if you're trying to go for something more emotional, I'll bring the velocities down. Here's how the chords sound now. So yeah, those are some simple ways that you could use to definitely improve your chords and spice them up. So now I want to get into the melodies. Especially when I was first making melodies, this really helped me a lot. Click the arrow, view, scale highlighting, and then whatever scale you're in. So we're in G sharp minor. You can put it in G sharp minor pentatonic. As you can see, there's a lot less notes in this scale. This scale, pretty much all these notes go really, really well together. So you could use this to easily lay down melodies without too much trial and error, because these notes pretty much always go well together. So I just laid down this basic melody using just the notes in the pentatonic scale. Here's how it sounds. It's a basic little melody here, but as you can hear, all these notes, like I said, go really well together. So that's a really easy trick that you can use, but I only recommend using that for your melodies, not your chords. Can't really use the scale for chords, but it's great for, doing leads and stuff like that. You can get really complex with it. You can pretty much hit all these notes and they're always gonna sound good for the most part. So this melody sounds pretty good, but I do want to spice it up a little bit. So I'm gonna get into how to improve or how to add some sauce to your melodies. One simple way I'm sure everybody has seen is, you know, doing the flams. I think that's what they're called. Just adding a note under another note and then having it kind of like go up to that note. That makes sense. Almost like you're strumming it. So in this scale, the pentatonic scale, all of these notes that are like a whole step apart sound really good when you do this. So you can, you know, really go crazy with it. Like, for example, I'll just lay something down real quick just to show y'all. So yeah, like I said, you could pretty much use any of the notes in this scale. It'll sound good. I literally just kind of click this in without even hearing it. Another good tip for melodies is don't neglect the velocities. Changing the velocities up of different notes and stuff can definitely almost completely change the sound. So for example, I like when the flams are usually quieter. So like when this note is quieter than this note, I think it sounds better. So if this one was louder, here's how it sounds. So it still sounds good, but I prefer it like this. Here's another example. I kind of want to emphasize these notes and make them a bit louder. So I'm just going to select them all and bring the velocities up by pressing Alt and then mouse wheel up. And I also want this one to be like really emphasized. So I'll bring that up too. So yeah, that's another little trick, or not really a trick, but definitely something to keep in mind. Velocities are very important. All right, so the next thing I want to get into is how to make lead melodies. So I'm just going to get a little synth lead that I made, one of these one shots. All of these will definitely be in future kits, so we could try that one. So a little tip for one shot and for one shot leads specifically, you can turn this slide on, put it on porta slide. That'll make the lead sound more like a lead, I guess you could say. All right, so I just made a little lead melody using this one shot. Here's how it sounds. It's all just in the pentatonic scale. Another thing I like to keep in mind, melodies usually sound good when they're kind of like going up and down, kind of like a roller coaster. Now I want to get into some tips to make your lead sound a bit more interesting. So one thing I like to do is have shorter notes. So for example, maybe over here it might sound good. So that sounds pretty good with the short notes, and you could play around. You could have a bunch of short notes going after each other, or you can do it like this where a long note goes into a short note. I'm gonna have this repeat. This is like another tip that you can definitely use to add variation. Even changing just one note like that will make it sound pretty different. So yeah, I like that more, but that'll definitely add some variation. Very simple. So now we can kind of get into layering. So next thing that we can add is maybe a bass. So I'll drag in a bass here. So for basses, I usually just copy the root notes and paste them right into the bass. But I think in this case, I do want to add some transition notes between each root note. So we could do something like this, for example. So yeah, I mean, with basses, I usually keep it simple. Just some passing notes is fine, or you could just copy and paste the root notes and just have it emphasize the low end. For the next layer we can add, we can maybe add a pad. Pads are great for layers. They're also great for switch up. So we can take the piano out and it'll create a really cool switch up. So just grab any of these. I'm just gonna copy the piano into the pad, take the high notes out, and just have it layer with the chords like that. Yeah, I don't like that sound, so we're gonna find another one. I want something a bit more subtle. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. We could get like a pluck like that. We could just do maybe a melody at the first bar that kind of just goes up in the scale. So yeah, simple notes like that. I know it sounds rough right now. Everything kind of sounds rough because I didn't add any effects yet or anything, but we're definitely gonna get into that right now actually. So usually I process my melodies one instrument at a time, but just for the sake of the video, I want to have like a separate section for the effects. For the piano, I'm just gonna solo the piano. So on almost everything, I'm probably gonna add reverb and delay. So I like using Valhalla and bring the low cut up, add some delay to the piano too. I usually go with like a 4-step delay, and I'm probably gonna add that to pretty much everything here. So reverb and delay everything. See that delay, the delay really fills it out and just makes it everything sound a bit more full. So for basses, I usually don't add effects too much. Sometimes I'll add a chorus and turn it down to kind of just make the bass more dynamic. So I think that would work well for this. Yeah, so that sounds pretty good on the bass. Also, the lead, I think I'm gonna add this sidechain Grossbeat preset. So we're gonna go into the presets, repeater, sidechain A, and I'm gonna probably turn it down a bit. So yeah, it's already sounding a lot better. So now the pad, I'm gonna add reverb, and I'm probably gonna take out some lows as well. Here lastly we got the pluck, which is sounding terrible right now, but gotta trust the process sometimes. So I'm gonna add reverb, a lot of reverb to this, and then I'm gonna add this delay. I like this delay. So yeah, that sounds pretty cool, but I do want to add a bit more to it. So I've been using this plugin as well called EFX Fragments. This plugin is really cool, and I always use, or not always, but I really like to use the 1-bar glimmers preset. It kind of adds like grain effects. I'm gonna turn it down maybe 25. Also gonna add chorus to the lead. So yeah, this is sounding pretty cool so far. Another thing I like to do when it comes to effects is I like to route all the melodies to a bus. So I routed it, control, left click, and drag to select all of these, and then right clicked here, route to this track only, to the insert one here. But you could do it on any of these mixer tracks. But I like to just add to this kind of like, it's almost like a master for the sample. So you can add things like, you can add RC20. Another thing I like to add sometimes is just a chorus, like right on all the melodies, and then turn it down. Another thing that I love to add is sound shifter. So this is just a simple plugin that allows you to change the pitch, and it kind of sounds like an audio file. So you know, when you drag in an audio file and you change the pitch, it kind of changes the way it sounds a bit. So this gives it the same effect. Maybe pitch it down 2 or 3, see how that sounds. So yeah, I love adding sound shifter because I think it blends everything together. So yeah, that's sounding pretty good so far. Last thing I would probably do with this melody is maybe add a vocal sample and maybe a perc loop to fill it out. All right, so I just got a vocal sample from Splice, just dragged it in and matched the key. I also pitched everything up, and now I want to kind of get into vocal effects and what I like to do on my vocals. So of course we're gonna start with reverb. And then usually I also add an EQ and kind of take out the highs, and sometimes I'll also take out the low to mid frequencies as well. Sometimes I like to add a combination of a flanger and a phaser, and then I'll usually turn them down. Yeah, the flanger and the phaser kind of give it a vintage vibe. Last thing I want to get into is how to make perc loops. If you're a sample maker, I definitely recommend you throw these in. It'll give inspiration to whoever's doing the beat. So to make perc loops, you can just kind of make a simple drum pattern and just put a bunch of effects on it. So Yeah, I just made this really simple drum bounce. I actually really like how this sounds. And what I usually do is I'll route them all to the same track. And then I'll also route them to the bus with the effects on it. So that's already kind of sounded like a perc loop. But if you want to put it more into the background, I usually just add one of these EQs to it. So now get into the arrangement. If you're a loop maker, I highly recommend also arranging your loops. So I'm going to just play through the arrangement so you kind of hear what I did. So those are the sounds I started with in the intro. And then I like to do this a lot on my loops where, yeah, I'll start with a few sounds in the intro. And then I'll kind of have this part here, which is kind of like all the sounds playing at once with the bass and the perc loop and everything. Also for this is I usually like to add some sort of transition. So I'm going to add like one of my go-tos. I also recommend that you do that as a sample maker, add transitions. It'll definitely make your loop sound more inspiring. So I just added a transition and I'm going to route it to the same mixer track just to blend it in. So yeah, you can hear how much that adds to it. And then this is kind of like a verse, a little quieter part. I took the lead out in the vocals. And then over here, this is kind of like a bridge. So I took the piano out, I left the pad and the pluck and added the bass back in. And this is one of the reasons I really like using layers, because this pad layer kind of creates a whole new vibe. So it's almost like a switch up. So here's how that sounds. So yeah, that sounds super fire. Definitely keep that in mind, you know, make bridges. Try to just make your sample as inspiring as possible. The last thing I kind of want to get into is kind of like mindset stuff and what kind of frame of mind that you should be in when you're making melodies and beats too. My advice in terms of mindset and stuff is try to finish every idea that you start, you know. Even if you're kind of not feeling it, just see where it goes. Just let the ideas flow. Trust your ear. You know, don't judge your stuff too much while you're making it. Save that for after you're done. That's something that really helped me out, especially because I had a big problem with overthinking and getting into like creative blocks and stuff. Now I pretty much never have creative blocks, and it's just because I just don't really, I try not to judge what I'm making as I'm making it. I just try to make it, you know. And even if it doesn't sound amazing from the beginning, the final product could be mind-blowing. So it's always good to just see it through, trust the process. As you add stuff, it'll come together. Trust your ear. You could watch a million videos on how to make melodies and how to improve your melodies, but if you really want to make real improvement, you have to make melodies as much as you can. That goes hand in hand with finishing your ideas. The more ideas that you finish, the better you're gonna get at making melodies. Quantity creates quality. A lot of the loops that I start, I'm not really feeling in the beginning, but then you add that one thing that kind of just takes it to the next level. Or even sometimes the arrangement can make it fire, you know, like. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I really hope you learned something. I hope you got a lot out of this and that you enjoyed it. Please let me know what y'all want to see next and give me any feedback in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed this and you want to see more. Subscribe if you want to stay tuned. Also, if you want some free loops, there'll be a link in the description for some free loops as well. I'm sending free kits out every Monday with like things like loops, phrases, perc loops, one shots. Yeah, every Monday sending them out. So if you want to sign up for that, there will also be a link in the description. Definitely tap in. But besides that, you know, pretty much it. Let me know what y'all think. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Peace.